November 2nd, 2022, birthday edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. Yes, it's one of our panelists' birthday today. It's Dede's birthday. Please jump in the chat and just wish her a happy birthday, please. The Digital Career Success Series brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS as we call it, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want to learn more, please visit nuljobsnetwork.com. Today's Digital Career Success Series, Level Up for 2023, How to Find and Leverage Resources to Finesse Your Career Development, is sponsored by and features representatives from Robert Half and Protiviti. With that being said, join me as we welcome and as I pass the mic on to Miss Natasha Barnes, Associate Director at Protiviti. Natasha, what's good?
Thank you so much, Ken. Happy to be here today. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to have this space with you. So again, I'm Natasha Barnes. I'm an Associate Director with IT Internal Audit and Advisory with Protiviti, which is a global consulting company. I'm also fortunate to be on an internal rotation right now with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team, leading Protiviti's racial equity initiatives with guidance from an amazing leadership team. On behalf of Robert Half Talent Solutions and Protiviti, we are grateful to partner with the National Urban League for this opportunity to share this presentation today. We've hosted previous presentations for the league focused on career development for summer interns, plus ways to learn new skills and tools with a beginner's mindset amongst a diverse workforce. These events have also been led by our National Urban League executive sponsors, Kim Dickerson and Billy Moliere, to continue to show our commitment to engaging with the National Urban League as one of our key strategic partners. We've also leveraged our Black and multicultural employee networking groups to engage with league members for the annual conference and other events as well. Robert Half and Protiviti offer unique solutions to the marketplace in combining the expertise of finding the right talent and specialists for staffing and impactful project needs. Our intention today is to share insightful resources to support your plans to level up in your career for 2023, leveraging valuable resources that we've published from our firms this year. And we have two incredible representatives from our parent company, Robert Half Talent Solutions, of course, and Protiviti Consulting, to share their expertise and guidance. I'll turn it over to them to introduce themselves further. Didi, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you so much, Natasha. My name is Didi Moore. I'm a vice president and internal talent strategist for Robert Half's Legal's practice group. I'm also a proud member of BIN, our Black Employee Network group, as well as GWIN, our Global Women's Employee Network group. I'm based here in California, and while my current focus is sourcing and identifying internal talent for Robert Half, I've spent 10 years with the company in the field, focusing on client and candidate relationships, primarily in the legal sector. So super happy to be here. I'll kick it over to you, Dolapo.
Awesome. Again, happy birthday, Didi. I still want to know where we're going to go have fun after this, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Dolapo Adedeji. I'm actually here out of our Charlotte office. I'm a director of internal audit. I'm part of our internal audit and financial advisory solutions here for Protiviti. I've been with our firm now going on 3 years, but prior to that, I worked for other Big Four. I started out in external audit, doing Big Four work. One of my favorite things that I'm doing right here within our Charlotte office is actually, I am the DEI champion. So I enjoy, meaning the diversity, equity, and inclusion champion here. So I enjoy coming up with innovative ideas to just continue to benefit our people. But thank you for having me.
Great, thank you both so much. All right, we'll go to the next slide. And just so everyone knows, we'll share our contact information as well at the end with our LinkedIn handles and whatnot. So feel free to reach out to us to discuss more. Great. So for our agenda today, we'll reference the Robert Half Salary Guide to share insights on US hiring and compensation trends. Then we'll reference the Protiviti 2022 Global Top Risk Report to review risks identified by executives across industries for this year and those anticipated risks looking ahead to 2031. Throughout, we'll review ways you can leverage these resources and other recommendations that we offer to help you guide your career development goals and approaches. And we'll also share considerations for continuing to work in this hybrid work environment. Feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll also have time for Q&A at the end. And all the different resources that we're sharing today, links to those documents will also be shared throughout the presentation too. Okay, so let's get to know each other a little bit better. So we'll move on to the next slide. And we're curious to understand what your top priorities are for 2023. So we invite you to share in the chat what letter represents, or letters represent where you're looking to head for the next year, so we can keep that in mind throughout the presentation. So we'll just give a few moments for you to think about that. Okay, new learning and development, new job or promotion. A couple of people looking to level up with a new job or promotion. Good theme there. Got it. Yep, doubling up, new job and learning and development. Great. Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing. Yeah, feel free to keep the responses coming in. So we're looking forward to sharing with you some tips to help you with all those different priorities that you might be looking into for next year. So while we're looking into those responses that are coming in still, I'll turn it over to Dede so that we can continue to help you with considering how these trends that we'll share might impact your workplace culture, your role in being able to continue to support your colleagues, and also for how you can advocate for yourself on a variety of topics. So Dede, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Natasha. So we'll just jump right in. And I know that we'll be, again, sharing those resources that we're mentioning today. And so we're going to talk about our salary guide. The salary guide is a document that we produce every single year. And for those of you who are not familiar with our company and the salary guide, Robert Half has been tracking salaries and publishing salary forecasts since 1950. Countless employers and employees rely on our projections and insights on employment trends to plan hiring budgets, write job descriptions, create compensation packages, and ultimately stay abreast of trends to retain and attract top talent to their organization. There's also insight into anticipated national trends, perks, benefits, as well as flexible work and topics like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so as we transition to the next slide, I believe the section that's going to be most impactful for this group is the opportunity to analyze salary trends by professional fields. And if we can move to the next slide. Oh. Sorry.
No worries, there might be a little lag. Okay, looks good.
Yeah, there may be a little bit of a time lag. We thank you in advance for your patience. And so as we look at this next slide, you'll see that we actually actively track salaries by professional fields, including legal, finance, accounting, technology, healthcare, and several others. Now for 2023, you can quickly find employment trends and salary figures for all specialities, including numbers customized to your specific geography. So simply put, if you are a bookkeeper and you want to know what people are making in Boston, you can simply plug in your job title and your city, and it's going to populate some salary ranges for you to consider. Now, I've really talked about the value add for employers on the first side of this, but if you are a job seeker, the value add comes in being able to approach salary conversations and negotiations with confidence, being able to benchmark your salary, having an understanding of what a competitive offer is to ensure that you get the best offer out there for your specific expertise. In addition, some value adds also include seeing what the hottest jobs are going to be going into the upcoming year, as well as the positions that are most likely to remain remote and the top industries hiring for your particular specialty. Something that you also may not have considered is that you can also kind of benchmark your resume up against some of these job descriptions that we're actually sharing with the role, to make sure that your resume also is picking up on some of those buzzwords employers are looking for. Now, if you're wondering where the data comes from, the starting salaries are actually based on actual placements through our offices across the nation. And so it's combined with simple supply and demand analysis. It really just the demand for a specific role, as well as the talent supply available and some other market conditions. Now, if we transition over to the next slide, you'll see that we'll jump into some of the top 5 trends that are emerging across the nation. As we look ahead to 2023, we're finding out the top trend for employers is hiring. That maintains its place as job number 1. millions of workers are resigning every single month, and this number doesn't take into account retirements, discharges, transfers, and other types of separations. So managers are now leveraging a variety of strategies to replace departing employees. As you can see, some of the top ways they're doing this is 46% are offering higher starting salaries, which is great. We're seeing more signing bonuses in the marketplace, more flexible work options, and even the hiring of remote candidates, which was something that it seemed to dominate the tech industries, but we're seeing it emerge more so in finance and accounting and legal and some of the other sectors as well. In addition to those facets, we're also seeing managers work to improve the overall employee experience to attract and keep interest in their organization. That might look like upskilling, offering paths to reach career goals, boosting environmental, social, and governance efforts, as well as putting work specifically in diversity, equity, and inclusion within their organizations.
Hi, Didi. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
From your experience, do you believe that there's a best time or a best practice in bridging that conversation with your current employer? If you're looking to leverage some of this data and saying, hey, look, I'm not really looking to leave, but I like a better situation here. When should that conversation take place?
And so and it's funny that you brought that up because that's actually something that I wanted to touch on. And so I would say that the conversation is best had when you had an opportunity to do some reflecting and know exactly what value you're bringing to the organization, when you can quantify some of your contributions. So I would say directly following a win, you do something significant for the company, that's a great time to leverage that win to open the door for that discussion and your performance reviews coming prepared. And so we'll actually talk a little bit more about that. And I have a specific resource that we're going to share that sheds some light on how to approach those conversations. And Natasha,
Thank
I'm
you.
not sure, you're welcome. Natasha, I'm not sure if you wanted to chime in here too, as far as some of the things we're also seeing internally to kind of boost environmental, social, and governance efforts here at Robert Half and Protiviti.
Absolutely. Thanks, Didi. Yeah, another topic we could touch on is more the upskilling that you mentioned a little bit earlier. So for us, in terms of attracting skilled candidates, the upskilling for new topics they can learn within their solution or within other areas such as design thinking and robotic process automation, we definitely want to continue to offer those opportunities to help to attract new employees and retain our current employees too. And we've seen a lot of good interest in continuing to offer these types of opportunities. I'll turn it back to you, Didi.
Thank you. And so we can actually transition over to the next slide so we can jump into trend number 2. Now, trend number 2, rising salaries are putting the pressure on. With more employers offering increasing starting salaries for new employees, pay compression has become a major focal point for a lot of employers. And pay compression is it's essentially when new hires are joining the organization and they're significantly out earning their long-term employees that have been in the same role or a very similar role. And so when surveyed, 60% of managers revealed that employees have expressed concerns regarding pay compression. And as a result, 82% of senior managers have given raises to those who've expressed these concerns. And so while you can very much, approach your manager and say, hey, I noticed the company is advertising a job very similar to mine at a significantly higher salary, Robert Half published an incredible article on how to actually ask for a raise and get it. So that's the resource that I just mentioned when Ken brought it up. And we're going to go ahead and put that in the chat. If you guys don't look at that today, I strongly recommend that you open it and just save it to your favorites bar. The article is a little bit dated. We published it at the height of the pandemic, but it is extremely relevant today. So if you're preparing to have that salary conversation, that raise conversation 6 months from now, or even 5 years from now, there are 6 key tips on how to help you best prepare for that discussion. Things like benchmarking your salary, know what the industry is paying for your specific role, quantifying your contributions to the organization, how you're positively impacting the bottom line. Also, taking a look at your job description. Something that kind of floored me is looking at your job description to make sure that you're minimally fulfilling all those requirements, and then you know how you exceeded. So that'll kind of give you pause too, because what you don't want to do is approach that discussion based on somebody making more or as much as you, and then you haven't done any internal reflecting, and you find out in an impromptu performance review that you're kind of missing the mark. So extremely great resources, even some tips around role playing with a trusted advisor or a mentor, so they can kind of talk to you and give you some honest feedback about body language, how you positioned your argument, even verbiage that you should use and avoid in those types of conversations. So please, please, if you don't look at anything else, look at that information, and I promise you it will benefit you. And then going back into employers offering those raises as a concern, as individuals raise concern about pay compression, it's ultimately a strategy that's put in place to help keep tenured employees from leaving the organization, which actually is going to lead into our third top trend. And so if we transition to that next slide, you'll see that retention is retaining its importance. And so we see that 52% of companies in general are just offering increased compensation, 46% are increasing recognition efforts, and 45% are allowing for more remote work and flexible options. And so again, that all kind of speaks to employers improving the overall employee experience. Savvy employers are going to leverage this information to make this a more enjoyable experience, and we're finding that recognition is a huge factor, as well as the flexible work, which kind of plays into another bigger trend. Natasha, did you want to add some color here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Didi. Super helpful information. So definitely for both Robert Half and Protiviti, we do try to find these additional opportunities beyond the ones that are listed here too, to help retain our employees, especially our top performers. Some of that includes giving people the opportunity to engage in projects they're passionate about, whether it's the employee networking groups that Didi and I mentioned earlier, where I'm involved in our multicultural employee networking group. We're also having various types of initiatives, such as a green team. We just went on a hike this past weekend for the Metro DC office for Protiviti. We're having other athletic teams. I'm not skilled there, so I stay away from those, but I cheer, or other wellness initiatives, etc. So trying to give people a home so that they can feel that sense of belonging and have a creative outlet as well in these other ways, while adding to their overall workday. So those are some initiatives that we'd like to encourage too, including professional development association. So attending the National Urban League Conference, I got to do that this year with other colleagues who have done the same in the past. And then we have our solution-specific conferences and associations too. So whether that's the Institute of Internal Auditors or the IT Audit Association, ISACA, as examples. So all to say, we hope that those are also additional considerations that you'll keep in mind if you haven't already, on ways to retain your colleagues and to help build community as well. I'll turn it back over to you, Didi. Thanks.
Awesome. And if we transition to the next slide, we can jump into the fourth trend, which is workers are demanding flexibility. And flexible work, it looks different in a lot of different ways. But as you can see, 60% of employees are working on a fully or a hybrid basis. And we also found that 41% of senior managers told us that employees would rather quit than actually return to the office full time. And so we have made it very clear how we feel about the flexibility and having more work-life balance. And flexible work can come in the fashion of remote work, hybrid schedules, flexible schedules. These practices really boomed because of the pandemic, but they're no longer a perk. It's now an expectation and a right employees and job seekers are prioritizing, and it sometimes will be the make or break in if an individual will accept a job or not. So if you are in a hiring seat, keep this in mind as we continue to move forward as an effort to attract and retain top talent. We also found out that 52% of workers, when surveyed, wanted more flexibility in determining which days and hours they worked. And so flexible work is more than just where people work, but it also includes when people work. Flexible scheduling includes flex time, windowed working, and other options that differ from the traditional 9 to 5. Employees typically love these options, and it's showing up in their work. It presents better work-life balance. 55% of employees shared that they feel that it's increased their morale having this flexibility, and nearly 1/3 said it helped them to be more productive during their actual work hours. And so if we transition to the next slide, that'll take us into our final trend, which is that companies are embracing this flexibility. They have no choice. The people have spoken, and now the companies have to respond. And it makes sense. It's ideal for several reasons. Access to talent with specialized expertise. I've actually seen this for those of you who are familiar with that kind of intersection between legal and compliance. There's a huge talent pool in marketing for AML, KYC skill sets on the East Coast that doesn't really exist here on the West Coast. We had a client that needed to tap into that skill set. So we encouraged them to offer the role fully remote. And in turn, we were able to tap into a great candidate that sat on the East Coast and wanted to work Pacific Standard hours. And so we were able to satisfy that staffing request. As far as staffing skills gaps are concerned, tons of companies have leveraged our full-time engagement professionals and consultants to bring in a high-level skill set for a finite amount of time, medical leaves, maternity leaves, and different things of that nature. We've also seen employers have the opportunity to relieve heavy burdens during peak seasons, bringing in multiple contractors for project-based opportunities. And the more flexible you are, the better the chances of identifying great talent. And then lastly, it's led to quite a few individuals actually getting converted into full-time employees, which brings that alternative recruitment method. I believe that when we kind of did a survey here, we found that how many percentages? Oh gosh, so let me speak out of turn, but I believe it was 64% of managers have converted contract employees to full-time staff based on their performance in this contract engagement period. So for those of you who are kind of taking your time to find the right fit, be open-minded to contract opportunities. It's great for networking purposes, and sometimes it's all about timing and just being in the right place. So that kind of sums up my portion of the presentation. Unless there's anything that you want me to address, Ken, I'm going to turn it back over to Natasha.
Yeah, Didi, if you don't mind, I'd like if you can, I guess, give an overview definition of a contract role for people that might not understand that terminology.
Sure. Yeah. And so that's just a project temporary job placement. That's kind of the sweet spot of what Robert Half does. And so if you're looking to have immediate access to earning opportunities, to network, to further develop a skill set, these are great ways that you can actually get out into the workforce, make some money, make some connections. And then you never know, just again, being in the right place at the right time could lead to an incredible career opportunity on a permanent basis.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, Didi. So helpful to share those different marketplace insights. I know my dog is on team flexibility for sure. He cannot handle me being gone for more than 8 hours again. So I know there's many people in favor of these new trends. So now we'll turn our attention to another resource that can help with leveling up and understanding the priorities and concerns for senior leaders so that we can align our development goals accordingly. I'll turn it over to you, Dolapo.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Didi. Thank you for that information. And as you all heard, just to tie it all together, the reason we are focusing on top risk from Protiviti here, and we do have a survey, and it's called Executive Perspectives on Top Risk. So just to paint a picture in terms of why we took the survey. One, we actually did a survey with over 1,400 executives, and I'm talking about C-suite, board members, etc. And we had 36 risk categories where we wanted them to give us their opinion on what matters the most for their company. We wanted to get a good sense of what do you care about? Now, the next question you're probably asking yourself is, why does this matter to me? How does this affect me leveling up, right? This is very critical. We wanted to give you guys another strategy, another perspective, because a lot of times we all just run into, oh, this is what's popular in the market right now. Let me just go and, upskill in this particular area. But take a different viewpoint. Actually understand, what is the market? What do these companies, what are they looking for? What is it that matters? What are their challenges and problems? Now you take that approach and then ask yourself, how can I upskill to help address this? I think Didi made a very good point earlier where she said, on the West Coast, there's no KYC AML person. If you're on the West Coast, why couldn't you be that person, right? So there are just opportunities out there that a lot of people don't realize. Now, if you can just make yourself valuable by understanding what the problem is and you be the solution, guess what? High value equals high reward. That's how you level up. So with that said, what does this all mean, in terms of all these different risks? One of the key things that came out of this survey was people and culture was absolutely critical to a lot of the executives. People and culture, diversity and inclusion. Yes, that includes us. So right now, they're willing to give a lot of us a seat at that table. The question is, do you have what it takes to sit at that table? And do you have what it takes to remain seated at the table? Okay. So one thing I do want to highlight as we go through some of the risks is pretty much, as you guys go through some of what we're going to talk through, I want you to go back and think about your companies and think about the top risks for your companies as well. But with that said, if you can go to the next slide, I wanted to highlight a few key risks that I thought were important to highlight here. So the first one was around succession challenges and pretty much how to attract and recruit top talent. It's hard. And I know, as someone who is trying to recruit people, it is hard to get the right talent. But imagine, just imagine if you have the right skill set and you know that job is out there, who do you think will be given that role? You. So just start thinking of ways on how can I insert myself to be so valuable that the company cannot do without me. And I hope that by the time I'm done today, and sure by the time we're done today, I'm hoping you guys will get those points. Secondly, is around digital technologies. Look, technology will forever continue to evolve, right? So anything around technology is always, 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 it's always a good ad when it comes to your skill set. So that's something that matters. That was actually one of the top 4. The other one I wanted to highlight is also cyber threats. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of cybersecurity, cyber threat. This is an important area as well. It's something that we even at Protiviti, we continue to look for skill sets in that area. So this is an opportunity for you to think and say, does this align to what I'm currently doing? Is this something I can actually upskill in? Lastly, social issues, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Look, a lot of us have opportunities now. Let's give them a reason. Let's give a reason to be seated at the table. So for me, diversity and inclusion is so key to a lot of companies right now. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you've heard of ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. Diversity and inclusion is a part of that. A lot of companies have commitments, specific commitments, to actually make sure that a lot of their executives and even mid-level role is diverse, meaning we have enough women, we have enough, different cultures, different races, right? So we have an opportunity. Now, what does this mean for 2031? So that's as of 2022, excuse me. Same thing, some of these are going to continue. As you can see, technology is good. This is 10 years later. We're saying this is going to continue to be a focus area, right? Succession challenges, succession plans will continue to be in place because we continue to find it hard to keep top talent because people are paying top dollar for top talent. Lastly, innovation. How can you continue to think about innovative skills? Like how can you continue to come up with innovative ideas that can add value to your company? So that's part of what you need to focus on. Now let's think about what should I do next? Think about creating your own value plan strategy. What does that look like? So I just gave you a couple of examples of skills, of top risk or issues that companies are facing. Ask yourself, I'll give you an example. Let's say cyber threat. Ask yourself, do I have the skill set in this area? If the answer is no, how can I get it? How can I start, reaching out to people that have experience in this area, start learning from people, start asking about what my company is doing around cyber threats, what value can I add? Start asking yourself those questions and come up with a plan, an actual plan to be able to upskill and also add value. I feel that once there's a problem and you provide the value, like I said, reward will follow. So come up with your own value plan strategy. Now, what next steps should I take and why should this matter? One of the things I want you to do is, first of all, ask yourself, what are the issues for your company that your company is facing? Or you can even use some of what we provided to you right now. 2, assess if you have the knowledge and skill set to help address those issues. If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, go get training. Even if the answer is yes, still get training. Research, make sure you keep up to date. Make sure that you have the right relevant, relationships out there. Make sure you attend events such as this that will provide you with those key points and key, knowledge to be able to upskill. Also, once you do that, seek opportunities to apply that knowledge. Seek opportunities within your firm, within your company, or outside of your company. It's okay. I know some people said new jobs, some said promotions, but the next level, there are certain skill sets that are necessary. Make sure you identify what that is. Try to make sure that you're ready for that role. You don't get into the role to get ready for it. You need to get ready before you get into the role. Does that make sense? So make sure that you just have the strategies in place. Ken?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So up-leveled, I've skilled up. I have the, you know, I've created a skill set that I believe is marketable to my current employer, or even if I'm external trying to get in, right? What are the steps after that, right? How do I get on the radar of hiring influencers and decision makers internally or externally if I'm trying to go to another organization? What's the process to getting in front of those people?
Absolutely. Look, excuse me. One, you need to be very involved, learn about the industry, be committed to that particular industry, attend events and conventions related to that industry, reach out to recruiters within that industry. Didi mentioned earlier, Robert Half they have contractual opportunities that may be in that particular area. You can start on a contractual basis and maybe then look for something on a more permanent basis. There are just so many opportunities. Start there so you can make sure that your skills are truly of value so that when you want that permanent role or that next level, you are ready for it. So that's where I would say you should start. Take webinars, attend seminars, attend conventions, and continue to hone your skills.
So professional development and strategic networking seems to be the key.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always, always. So I think that's in a nutshell what you should do. If you don't mind moving to the next slide. What were the key takeaways from this survey? Again, buckle up. It's a disruptive decade ahead, meaning there's going to be a lot of changes. Some of you have heard about recession coming. Be ready. You want to have that role where they will need you regardless of the recession. You want to have a role that no matter what the recession brings, they will need you. So start thinking about that. People and culture, like I said, top of the agenda. They care. They want to bring us to the table. So how can you be that person that should be seated at the table? Start thinking about that. Economic uncertainty, I already talked about that. Also, market intelligence. Just continue to understand what the market is like. Who are the winners? Who are the losers? Why did they win? Why did they lose? Continue to keep abreast of what's going on in the market. Cybersecurity, data privacy. Honestly, we're giving you guys a cheat sheet here. Start thinking about those particular skill sets because the executives have said what they want, right? And lastly, a long-term outlook helps companies be better. So always be resilient. I would just say that no matter what, don't give up, keep trying, keep going at it, keep trying, be resilient, be prepared and to prepare yourself. So that's it in a nutshell. If you don't have any questions, I'll pass it on to Natasha.
Great, thank you so much, Dolapo. So helpful for us to understand what the concerns are and the risks of our top executives, and then figure out how we can apply that to our day-to-day activities so we can remain relevant and useful for mitigating those risks. Okay, so now if we go to the next slide, we are in our last section here. So just wanted to kind of bring it all together. So if we go to the next slide. Right, so we've explored marketplace trends. We've also looked at those concerns and risks that top executives have across industries. And as we were coming to our discussions, we figured there's really 3 points we wanted to emphasize at the end here for research, training, and connections. So for research, we've already walked through both of those 2 documents that you can check out later on. Each of those documents also have additional resources that go into specific industry trends and even certain roles in the Robert Half Salary Guide in particular. So you can look at that further so that it can help you get that foundational understanding, like we've been emphasizing, and being aware of what's happening in your industry and knowing how you can navigate appropriately to incorporate those insights into how you work. So in terms of kind of looking at it for myself as an IT audit and advisory professional, so that includes other key documents that I look out for all the time. So one is every year, Protiviti and ISACA, the IT Audit Professional Association, we put out a document that's also a survey report. That's the IT audit perspectives on today's top technology risks. So that's something that I'm looking at to see how can I help our clients prioritize what they want to audit? How can we help them with our testing approaches? So those are other key documents that I know that I'm keeping within my toolkit of how I can stay on top of my game. Another organization is the Cloud Security Alliance. So every year they put out a document with top threats for cloud computing. This year it's the pandemic 11, so 11 of those risks. So that's another document that you can check out if that's your field, and I follow them on LinkedIn as well. So I'm doing different ways to try to keep current with what is coming out, since we know it's hard to keep up with all the different news announcements and trends, et cetera. So trying to be intentional with how I can do that and the key resources that help me focus on my job. For training, we've been talking about that throughout. One of the items that we had touched on in the top risks was the inability to utilize data analytics effectively. So that's something that across industries, understanding how you're going to be able to manage and analyze data will always be really useful. So maybe that's something that you consider doing another webinar on to just get yourself familiar with it before you want to make maybe a deeper financial investment in some more certifications or other coursework. So just trying to think about what you're going for with your training plans in terms of being open to new concepts versus trying to get deep in new technologies, applications, approaches, et cetera. And then for connections. So understandably, we've been in this hybrid work environment for some time. So sometimes it's nice when we get to go back in person for those who are interested, like the National Urban League Conference this year, which is super inspiring and informative. And I want to share some other examples of what you could do to try to get a little bit creative. So for me, in March of 2021 for ISACA, I attended a webinar where the presenter was really informative. I reached out to her afterwards on LinkedIn. She was talking about artificial intelligence and diversity, equity, and inclusion, things that are up my alley that I'm interested in. So we had a follow-up conversation that led to me being on a panel with her and other incredible speakers later on in the year for the SANS Institute, which offers cybersecurity training. So just kind of thinking like, just from reaching out, it might not seem like much could happen from it, but trying to take advantage of the opportunities you do have to engage with people, following up, setting that recurring invite so you don't have to remember to do it, so that you're able to stay engaged with them and you just never know what could come from that. So just wanted to share a couple of those different tips with you all. And the last part that we can kind of hone in on, we know it's really retaining our people, making sure they feel seen, valued, and heard. So in the marketplace trends, we noted that 46% of employers are increasing their employee recognition efforts to support retention. So maybe you can think of how you might want to approach these activities differently or maybe more intentionally, whether it's some swag or a team event or perhaps a conversation at an important moment of need for someone. I know I like all of the above, but those conversations at the right time definitely can be really impactful. So just trying to think about how we can continue to support one another as we navigate all of these different environmental conditions that we're going through. And just wanted to check in, Didi or Dolapo, any other tips that you wanted to share as well?
I think it's all good. I think everything you said is absolutely correct. But like I said, please, 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 there are webinars, pay for it. Be willing to invest in yourself. I just want to highlight that. A lot of us don't want to pay that money to invest in ourselves. Invest in yourself. And also, there are a lot of free webinars out there. You just got to search that will provide very good information. Look for it. Spend time looking for it. I'm telling you, the difference between you and where you want to go is pretty much what you know. So if you can invest in your knowledge, you will invest in adding value, you're going to level up. It's just that simple.
I love it. Free webinars like the Digital Career Success Series by the Urban League Jobs Network. Listen, amazing presentation. I have a question. Didi, I want to bring you back into the conversation if you don't mind. So as a talent strategist, what are you seeing? So we're speaking about upskilling and acquiring new skills and professional development. And sometimes that leads people to really looking holistically at what they're doing, and they may decide that they want to make a career pivot. Any advice to individuals that are considering just going in a different direction, especially after what we've just went through with the pandemic? I'm hearing a lot about that. So what's been your take on that?
That's an excellent question. And then we've seen a lot of that taking place because of the pandemic, people reevaluating what matters most to them. And so I think before making the career shift, you have to really look at your current position and find out what you love about the position and what no longer serves you. Once you have a clear understanding on those things, then it's time to really do the research. Once you know what you want to do, you have to really look into it and make sure that the numbers make sense. Now, if money is not your number one motivator, then you can look at all the other external factors. But I think the biggest challenge candidates run into is in making the career shifts, you sometimes have to take a step back financially. And it can be really challenging to do that, especially in a time where we're experiencing heightened inflation. And so I would say for somebody that's looking to make the change, evaluate what you need, what you want, where you can compromise, know what numbers make your life work to make sure you're targeting the right opportunities. And then you're going to have to make the shift in your resume. And so I would say your resume needs to mirror it, the opportunities that you're targeting. And so I've seen people have different versions of their resume for different jobs. As a recruiter, I absolutely recommend it. So you're drawing the parallels and the positions that you're going after to the actual experience that you've already acquired. You're leveraging resources like the NLUs, the NULs, webinar series and different resources, free resources to get some additional insight, trainings, and certifications where possible. You're adding that to your resume. And then for those of you who are still in a position and the skills that you're trying to upskill to, if there's some relevance to your current job today, don't be afraid to approach your employer to find out what they're willing to pay for. It's important for them to retain their top performing employees. And so if you're bringing value to the organization, there are likely some things you're interested in doing that your company actually has a budget for to also invest back into you before you make that transition. So look into see what, reimbursement programs they offer and different things like that before making that shift, and then start networking, tap into individuals in those industries, join networking groups, and start dialogues and connections with people who are where you want to be.
Wow, amazing. Dolapo, I have a question for you. So I'm just looking at your title and your skill set and then listening to you, and I'm like, wow, she really, like, your delivery is great. And I'm just wondering, so you work financial advisory, internal audit, and how do you go about identifying other areas internally where you can add value? Because you have such a strong people skill set, and I'm just wondering, like, how you went about kind of leveraging that and using that in your career as well.
I'm so glad you asked, because I've done it and I'm doing it right now. So I'll give you an example. So about 7 years ago, I was bored of internal audit. I'm going to be honest with you. I was bored of just auditing and telling everyone what they were doing wrong. And I wanted to do something different. And I switched to the AML space. First thing I did was I asked, how can I get on a project? Knowing very well that I didn't have the skill set, I was willing to take a lower, I didn't want to lead the project because I was used to leading projects. I'm like, it's okay. I will do what I need to do because I need to learn. Learned a lot. And before you know it, I am not kidding you, another bank offered me so much, I think close to 40% increase in my salary to come help them. That's only doing 2 projects because I had that AML skill set. Because I chose to just make a pivot, to learn something new. And right now, in my current role, I keep asking myself, okay, I'm good. I can do internal audit in my sleep, any day, anytime. I need to challenge myself. So I'm thinking of ESG. And what I'm doing is internally, I'm talking to all my stakeholders, my bosses and all, saying, what can I do? How can I add value? How can we build this skill set within internal audit? I want to take that on. Even though I'm still learning about it, I don't have the answers. It's just taking that leap of faith and just committing to it and just being the best. Like, I'm the kind of person, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. So I try to just put my all in it, invest everything into it, and be the best at it.
That clearly comes out in your delivery. I would imagine you are the best. Natasha, thank you very much for informing us on what AML was. I'm sitting here thinking, like, what in the world is that? And Natasha dropped it into the chat, so thank you. So Natasha, that leads me to where I was coming with you. So in director capacity, dealing with people, what's the responsibility of top level managers and kind of seeing talent in their workforce and maybe suggesting adjustments or suggesting areas of deficiencies that need to be improved upon? Like, how do you bridge those conversations for the good?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I think compassion and inclusion. I think, right, compassion, from definitions that I've been focusing on because I enjoy studying these topics, is empathy plus action. So being able to hear what is happening for our people when they're sharing their concerns with us, their challenges, if they're talking about potential concerns like we talked about today, like pay inequity, et cetera. So being able to just put ourselves in a position of being aware to and open, so they feel like they can approach us to talk about these types of issues, and also being aware of what's happening so we can bring those issues to the right leaders to say, hey, we've heard this concern, or we've seen this concern in the market, and we want to understand what bearing it has for us and what we can do about that so we can take care of our people. So I think just trying to make sure that we're keeping those 2 values in mind in action of compassion and inclusion. I think those 2 things can help us.
Are you finding that that's become a little more difficult or challenging, maybe is the word I'll use, with people working in remote or hybrid settings?
Mhm. I think we do have to get creative, right? I feel like there are some people that I've created some amazing bonds with, and I've never met them. Just people on my, everyone here. I've never met Dolapo. I've never met Didi. And as my whole team right now for diversity, equity, inclusion, and just over the years. So I think, of course, there's a wonderful benefit to being in the presence of someone else, and there's a certain energy, right, that happens there. But I think just trying to be intentional and creative, right? So there are people that I meet with them periodically every other month or so, and we've never met. It's still the case, but just trying to be a little bit more creative about how we can make those connections. So for our new hires, right, getting them folded in. Is there an employee networking group they care about? Is there a committee? Is there, certain unofficial mentor, in addition to all the other advisors that we give them that can help them feel that sense of community and belonging and get those connections going? Since we know how important it is to feel like you belong at work, right? That's how people are attracted. That's how people stay. So making sure we use all of those different resources effectively to help us do that.
Well, that's a testament to the culture being created, I guess, at Robert Half Protiviti, because I was on a call with you guys and I would have never imagined that you've never met. I thought the three of you were like the best of friends. I just pictured you guys were like hanging out every happy hour or something like that. Like the energy was there and it was real. So kudos to everyone over there. So we had a question that came through the Q&A, and I know it was answered offline, but I think it's the conversation should probably be placed on the floor of the call where everyone can kind of hear this. So Didi, when you were speaking about people pursuing contract opportunities, like that being a way to possibly level up, or at least to explore different career paths or to add value, and someone checked in and they wanted to know, does that apply to entry, mid, and senior level opportunities, or is there a place where that opportunity kind of sits specifically?
I would say that that particular opportunity kind of sits at the entry and mid-level experience range in terms of being able to step into those types of roles, irrespective of your experience. Even if you're senior or tenured in your career and want to try something different, you can definitely be open to exploring these contract opportunities. The only caveat being is that there's a little bit of give to get. And so the positions may not pay as well as you're accustomed to in a full-time position because it's a project engagement for a finite amount of time. So if you can make the adjustments and make the numbers work, I've seen a lot of people go in with one entry point, make the right connections, get the right visibility within the organization, and end up totally in a different department in a permanent capacity because they're like, oh my God, you took this project, but this is your background or this is your skill set. So again, a lot of it is timing, networking. And I would encourage every professional at every skill level, if you can make that transition financially, to be open to contract opportunities. This is not ideal for somebody who's full-time employed. I do not recommend you quit a permanent job to take a risk on a contract. There's no guarantees with that process. And so if you're in transition, if you're in between opportunities, this is ideal for you.
Excellent. And I know Dolapo talked about showing up and being present. Sometimes that makes timing, the unnatural timing, very natural when you show up and you're present and you're in places where opportunities exist. We have a question from Wanda. She wants to know, does Robert Half International still have the study portal? I'm not familiar. Can you guys chime in?
You know what? I believe that we still have it. What that individual Wanda is referring to is that we had an upskill kind of resource available to contract employees and those registered with our agency. So if we found that in testing, there was kind of a shortcoming in one area or another, you had access to like hundreds of thousands of free online tutorials. And I believe that's something that we still do, but I think it has a different name. So that's something I can do a little bit of research into, and I'll get back with the organization to share that resource for individuals who want to maybe dabble with Excel or QuickBooks or just different types of computer programs. But that's what it's really centered around.
Got it. Thank you so very much. So I have a question, and anyone can take this, but I know that Dolapo talked about what 2033 could possibly look like and where the risks and challenges are. But if we kind of reverse engineer that just a little, where are the opportunities going to be? Are you guys seeing, okay, this is a skill set that I would really hone in on for opportunities in 2033 or 2025 for that matter? Anything that you're seeing that you're suggesting people kind of really take a deep look at?
Anything in the technology space. Technology is a good one. The reason I went with internal audit and the accounting space is because people are always going to need accountants and auditors, because a lot of the regulators are really honing down on a lot of these organizations. So because of that, we always seem to have our jobs. So consider internal audit. I'm trying to use this opportunity to recruit, but I'm just saying, it's a good gig.
You're ready to say you're bringing people over to your team.
Hey, I have the opportunity, why not? Right? So again, internal audit is such a good gig. A lot of people don't realize it, but especially for women too, like it's just, you get that balance. At least for me, it has worked out well. I love internal audit, but there are many other opportunities out there. Like I think I mentioned privacy, data privacy was one. Cyber security / cyber threat is another. Anything in the regulatory space, AML is another. I would focus on those. I'll start with those key ones. I'm sure there are many more, but I'll let my colleagues chime in.
I agree with all of those things. And just my 2 cents for those of you who maybe have a legal or healthcare background and you're not looking to switch professional fields altogether, be a technology champion in your specific industry. So understand what new technology is being rolled out to further advance that particular professional field or to make the job more seamless or to improve things. So be the person who's always the first to adopt technology that your employer is already leveraging, or that you're coming to the table with ideas of technology that could be utilized within the organization. If you are a tech champion, that is another way to kind of recession proof and kind of keep your job secure no matter what's kind of happening. So maintain that visibility within the organization, but technology champion for your specific industry will also add tremendous value to your organization.
Excellent. There was a question that dropped into the Q&A. I'm actually offended by it. How should you respond to recruiters on LinkedIn? Are they legit? I'm a recruiter. We are very legit. I'm going to turn this over. I'm not a guest here today, so I'm going to have Didi answer this question for us, please.
That is funny. So I will say some recruiters can give us a bad name, but we are legit. We have a viable opportunity. So you should respond courteously and professionally, even if the timing isn't right for you. So I would say it's either better to pretend like you didn't see the message or acknowledge it in a kind way and just say, hey, thanks for reaching out. The timing isn't right, but would love to reach back should things change. You never know what's going to happen. I had a candidate be extremely rude to me when reaching out, and come to find out his company was being acquired. So he came back very interested in the job I reached out about, but he handled the conversation so poorly, I wouldn't trust him, to be considered for an opportunity. So I would just say protect your professional brand, be respectful and courteous in how you interact with people. You never know who's connected to whom. So I would just say if you're not interested, either simply don't respond or respond courteously and say, hey, the timing isn't right, but thanks for acknowledging me or thanks for reaching out.
Thank you so very much for that answer. Natasha, real quick, we're gonna leave on this one though. Didi spoke about brand. How are you suggesting that people kind of leverage their personal brand and their professional brand on some of the social media platforms? But let's just stick to LinkedIn. We've had people ask questions on this platform before about wanting to explore opportunities via LinkedIn, but not wanting to fall on the radar of their current employer in a bad way. So can you speak to some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I can start, and definitely Didi and Dolapo, feel free. I know that many people have that concern, right? You're starting to update your LinkedIn and people are wondering, are you okay? Are you a flight risk? What's happening? But I think some of it too is just trying to maintain it being relevant, which honestly, I do need to update personally as well. But I think it's trying to understand, what do you want people to remember about you? So for me, I try to think that, I have my 3 areas. It's tech, it's, social, racial justice, equity issues, and it's wellness. Those are the 3 items for me, the areas that are part of my personal brand. So when I meet someone and I present, or it's on LinkedIn, right? How can I make it so that's what they leave with? Like, I want them to remember those are the parts about me that I want them to keep in mind. So I would encourage everyone, look at your LinkedIn, see what else you can do so that it shows, whether you post content and you're into posting all the time, or whether you just want to make it so your experiences are updated, your certifications, your volunteer experiences too, like just trying to make sure we can get to know who you are as a person as best as we can in a comprehensive way. So yeah, I'll share with Didi and Dolapo anything else you want to add.
I think that all of those things are great. And I would just say, just boost your engagement, your visibility on LinkedIn. So take time to post relevant content to your specific industry or the industry you're trying to tap into. Look for networking groups, attend webinars and conferences to make connections with the right people. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. I do not encourage you to switch on that open to work tag, because if your employer has a license, they will be able to see that you've switched your status to open to work. So I would say, if you're wanting recruiters to reach out to you or prospective employers, make sure that there's enough buzzwords in your content. Don't just list your job description, or excuse me, your job title, but list a little bit of a description in what you do in your organization. So value adds, wherever you're increasing, improving, or decreasing cost, saving time, money, put those things out there, and people will just naturally reach out to you without you having to say that you're open to work or open to new opportunities.
Well, speaking of being open to new opportunities, I'm sorry. Listen, this has been completely amazing. I really appreciate you guys. I thank you on behalf of the National Urban League, Wanda Jackson, Dory Brown, and the entire UL Jobs Network team, and our audience. This has been great. Listen, if you want to stay in contact with the Protiviti Robert Half team, this is probably a great place to start. We have information here. We spoke a lot about LinkedIn, but they were even nice enough to provide email addresses. So lock in. The talent is what they do, and apparently they do it really well. It's been a great session. I really appreciate all of you and the input. If you want to stay connected with me, please feel free to check me out on social media. But LinkedIn is home. I love it as a recruiter. I'm legit over there. So please don't hesitate to check in. Look, we're going to do this again next week. But here are resources that Robert Half has provided that I believe will add extreme value to not only your professional development, but to your future career prospects. So please take a look at all of these links and tap into that salary guide as well. All right, next up, join us for a discussion about work-life balance with Shayla Turner, Human Resources Business Partner at Anheuser-Busch. They're back Wednesday, November 30th, 12 p.m. Please register today. We will check back in with you on the 30th. Any closing words, Natasha? Dede.
Be well. That's all I have. Dede.
Same. Thank you so much for having us today. We appreciate sharing this time with you guys, and I wish you guys much success in all of your career endeavors that are next step and what's to come for 2023 and beyond.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you got this. Level up. You got this.
Yes.
You got this. Level up indeed. But we got it. And we did it today. Listen, this session and all of the Digital Career Success Series sessions are available by visiting YouTube and going to the UL Jobs Network DCSS. This one will probably be up later on in the week. Dory's really great at getting that together. But, check out last week. Check out last month. These are professional development tools that we do for you on behalf of the National Urban League, the UL Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, our sponsor, Robert Half Protiviti. My name is Kenneth L. Johnson. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We'll see you on the 30th. Next up.